5:31. Y'all do have a quorum. Does anybody want to run the meeting? Since Alex isn't here? Or do we want me to run the meeting?
I move you. How about that?
Okay, so it is 5:31 p.m. Hopefully we'll have a couple more commissioners joining us shortly. But so far, just checking the Zoom and checking the room. Meredith Mahan is here. Jason Smith is here. We also have Mark Harper here, and we have Joanne Goodley. We do know that Catherine was not able to be here this evening, and so hopefully Ms. Davis is able to join us on Zoom. But if she communicates that she has any problems getting in, let me know so I can make sure I'm paying attention to that. So we have just a few things to cover tonight. So the minutes from the April 14th meeting, those were sent out via email. I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at those. Do we need to make any changes to that, or you can also make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
So motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Mahan to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 4-0, it's unanimous to approve the minutes from the April meeting. So as we said before we started the meeting, Ian Montgomery was not able to join us this evening, so he hopefully will be able to join our August meeting, and we'll at that time kind of talk about our certified local government review and what he's doing with that. Basically, that allows us to have access to state grant funding, and our citywide heritage and historic preservation plan is being largely funded by a certified local government grant. So keeping that good standing and meeting our requirements with the state helps us to get great funding for our preservation projects. And we have access to those on an annual basis. And so that's a really important thing for us to make sure we're staying in good standing. So Sherry fills out those reports and engages in that communication with the state office to make sure that we do that. And she's done some really fantastic work making sure that we're abiding by those standards. So since this is y'all's annual meeting, it is time to elect a chair and a vice chair for the next term. We do only have 4 commissioners present, so I guess y'all are welcome to nominate people who aren't here. That's the fun thing to do, right? So happy to kind of have y'all discuss what you might want to do there. It is also an option that I think it might be worth pointing out. You can always table this until a later meeting when you may have more commissioners present if you think that would be better, since you only have
Yeah, I
4.
think so too.
Well, since Catherine's already acting, she may be interested in taking it on.
So there's that. So she was not able to join us tonight only because of a work conflict, not because she didn't want it to be here. So.
Yeah, but I mean, I wonder if she's interested in doing that. I don't want to make somebody do it if they're not here.
Yeah, I don't want to throw somebody in.
That would not be
No, that's always a fun joke to make, but just being thoughtful about whether or not y'all want to have this discussion when you have a full set of commissioners available.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. That works for us. So Sherry, do you want to talk about the binders that everybody's getting?
Well, I'm very excited to have Dee Dee Lamb's picture of the painting of the Henderson School which is the first school in Fayetteville, which was an all-black school, which is her house now. There was a black and white picture originally, and she painted what it would have looked like in real life back then because it was brick. And she told me to put this number 204 at the bottom of it because that's her 204th painting, and so that dates it.
Oh.
And then she also sent us this information on the Henderson School, this article that she had, so that's what's in front of it. And you can see the black and white picture that she used as reference to paint the painting. Is that the same one? I don't think that's the same one. Yeah, it is, it's the same one. So then you open up, and the first thing is your calendar schedule for when your meetings are. It's exactly one calendar year, so from June to June, because today's when you elect your officers, and so it goes on to next June. And then the table of contents is next. And so importantly, so I went on to the Arkansas National Register of Historic Places found where you guys could, just follow this link in order to go to get there, and, Article X, that's the article that created, the Historic District Commission and gives you authority, to do certificates of approval, for the White Hanger, and if we ever get any other historic districts, local historic districts. And there's, links to our history and, oh yeah, here it is. This is what I wanted to mention, the National Park Service, how to preserve by topic, and National Park Service preservation briefs. These are really interesting to help you guide other people to them if they need to do work on their house or whatever.
Which page is that?
That's in this first section, scheduled table of contents. So it's right behind the schedule. There's 2 pages there.
So there's the,
Oh, I'm sorry, the table of contents says section A, important links, I'm sorry.
Okay,
And so,
yeah.
Important links is the next thing.
got it, okay.
And then, section B is your bylaws. Section C is your own copy of Article X, which is the ordinance that created us. And before I go through the other sections, I wanna say the very last section of the book, section G, is, the first ordinance, to establish a historic district in Fayetteville from 1979. And in order to be a certified local government, which Brent was just talking about, that's how we get our grants, you have to have a historic district. And so I thought you all would be interested to know that as part of this ordinance, the historic district that they wanted to create was Big Spring, which we now know as Washington Willow. And so I thought that was very interesting. And then section D is the requirements that we have to meet in order to remain a certified local government. Section E is the White Hanger, which is our only local historic district, so it's the only place we have authority over. And then the after the White Hanger, I have, so in section F, I just put a picture of each of the historic districts that we have. Because we have several historic districts, we just don't have governing authority over them because we haven't made them local yet. So we have the Ben Johnson 2 Homestead District. We have the Butterfield mail route, which is just road segments. Meadow Spring Historic District. Mount Ord and Wilson Park Historic Districts. Mount Sequoia Cottages, which is only 2 cottages up there on Mount Sequoia, across the street from Mount Sequoia. What we think of it as Mount Sequoia. And then Mount Sequoia Historic District, which is across the street from those 2 cottages, is now official, just as of like a week or 2 ago, officially historic district. And
I thought it was the houses around Mount Sequoia, is the,
within it now. Now we have the ones within it as well. So the first one, Mount Sequoia Cottages Historic District, are just those 2 cottages that I have outlined in red right there. And then the one that became a historic district just about a couple weeks ago, it's all of the,
oh, it's the grounds, it's not the houses around the Mount Sequoia?
no, it's all the
It's the
houses on the
church.
grounds.
Oh,
And the cross.
okay.
So how did that become officially a historic district?
They applied to become a historic district.
They did,
Yes,
okay.
yes. And then it went to, so that's another thing to mention too. So with the CLG procedures, one thing that we learned, and we didn't learn it in time to get it before you got, because we would have, since we only have meetings every other month, we didn't learn it in time to get this in front of you all, but whenever somebody applies to be a historic district or have their house become to be on the National Register of Historic Places, it goes to the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program first, and they send me a letter and let me know that this is up for nomination. Then I bring that letter with all of its content, so it has all the photos and all the descriptions of the property and everything, to you all at the Historic District Commission, and you read through it and look through it and see if you see any errors or anything that needs to be added to it or something like that before it goes on for the national committee to consider it. And so it first gets approved by the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, and then they say that they would like to nominate it to the National Register of Historic Places, and then the National Register of Historic Places votes on it. And then the next page after Mount Sequoia is North Garvin Drive Historic District, and that's only 3 houses. I was thinking it was, yeah, it's only 3 houses up there. I was originally thinking it was 2.
So when it's just 2 or 3 houses, it's because these people applied to be a district?
Yeah, because all of those people agreed, came
Those
together,
3 people agreed.
yeah, to come together to try and be a district, yes. And then we have the University of Arkansas Historic District, and that's they apply for their own stuff all the time. And Washington Willow, you're all very comfortable with that. And then West Dixon Street Commercial Historic District. And then we're back to the end where it's that the original ordinance that created the Historic District Commission and Big Spring. And if you read through that, that's pretty interesting. So that's kind of more along the lines of what they send to us whenever they apply, so they can tell us and we can send on the information to the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. But usually that's not how it goes. We don't find out about it until the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program lets us know that somebody applied and here's their application that they sent us. And so this original ordinance is a good, gives you a good idea of what you would see in that, you know, with them describing why it's important that this becomes a historic district. Also, there's pictures. So if you go to the that link that I have in the beginning of it on section A, I think it was. Yeah, section A with the important links. If you go to the National Register of Historic Places and you search on it, if you click on something, you can see the whole original application, every detail of it, all the pictures and all the descriptions and everything on that. So those are your binders.
Thanks.
For you to look through at your own leisure. And then, of course, you know, once we have a local historic district, you know, we can go over ways to do things like the certificate of approval and things like that. And we'll be going over the next time that we get an application, we'll be bringing it before you to look through.
Any questions on that? And thank you so much, Reverend, for taking that to Tommy. Thanks for taking Tommy's binder to her.
Okay.
We appreciate the special delivery service. So we have wrapped up National Historic Preservation Month. I think it went really well. And it turns out that the Washington County Historical Society had partnered with us. Malin Rice came in and showed the signs that they placed at 31 different locations around the county. Their social media reach was over 60,000 people in the month of May.
I saw every one of them, I think.
I think I
over.
did too. So we don't have a count yet for ours. That's a little trickier to get because the city posts about 50,000 things a day on our social media. But we do know that Washington County's social media campaign reached over 60,000 people that's really exciting. And it looks like a lot of really, good and thoughtful response to some of the posts in particular. I really appreciate when people are willing to share what they know in addition to what's, being posted. And so it looks like, I really learned a lot from some of the comments that they had as I was kind of following along with that. We do have the Faye Jones photo exhibit still at the library. That'll be up until toward the end of the month. I think June 27th is when that comes down. So that seems to have been pretty successful so far. We were trying to get to the farmer's market, but it turned out that those emails saying, oh, you have a booth tomorrow, here's your reminder, those were all going to my spam folder. So I worked on the settings and then it still went to my spam folder. So we'll have to work that out for getting to farmer's market and successfully communicating on that. My apologies. We did also have a really successful Preservation Month proclamation. The mayor was not able to make it as he's been working on getting well and being healthy and getting back to work, but the Mecklin Rice is where the Washington County Historical Society, and then Rebecca Luker, who y'all met at your last meeting, was there. She and some of her family members were there, and her comments were really wonderful. So she had also brought artifacts from her family to kind of show and share, and I think she's looking forward to additional opportunities to partner with us and share her family story. She's also continuing to do research into that, which is kind of amazing. So we're really looking forward to continuing the stories that we captured through that. And her family was just really excited to get to do it, so that was pretty fun. And we're looking for, so really, if y'all have ideas about other events, things that you'd like to do, let us know. We're building great momentum toward our historic preservation plan. But before we do that, we have some really good news, and we got some money. Sherry, do you want to talk about Woolsey, where we ended on that?
Oh, well, basically we got it done. So everything's done, the fence is repaired, we didn't get a gate, we couldn't afford a gate, but originally Arkansas Historic Preservation Program didn't want us to have a gate anyway because there wasn't one there to model it off of. So the trees that were disrupting the gravestones have been removed, and not the roots, of course, but we and the trees that were making it impossible to fix the fence have been at least cut down to where they're not in the fence anymore. And the stones have all been set upright, and we have put in our final report and received our grant payment for that. So that's really amazing. It's to see something. To see it all the way from. I didn't see it from the very beginning. I didn't know it existed.
How long's that been
How
going?
many years?
Well, no, Woolsey is still going. That grant.
Cemetery.
Yeah, the cemetery grant was officially began October, and
Oh, just for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, just for the
grant
cemetery.
process.
That
Yeah,
didn't take too long.
yeah, the buildings are still under construction and all of that. And I did see, so, there's not a lot of institutional knowledge because we've had people, one person we've gone through some employees. But I really researched out Woolsey to see where it started at and how we got to where we're at. And people have spoke about what we're going to do with Woolsey and all of that. And Mary's brought up and showed the site plan of Woolsey with, and I brought it up too since Brenton's been here, the site plan of Woolsey. But it's on our master trails plan. There's a trail that goes all the way through Woolsey. So, there's a lot. We have plans for Woolsey. There just hasn't always been great communication because there's been some employee turnover. But it's something that I've researched all the way back. And so if there's anything that anybody's curious about on any of the details of that at any point in time, it really started in 2014. So, but at least we have our little portion that we got assigned all the way done, and the rest of it is under facilities right now, so.
But I think, so there's still some work to be done on the main farmhouse, but I think when they get that portion, that phase complete, I think we wanna have a site visit, if everybody would wanna go out.
Definitely.
So it's kind of protected, there's a big chain link fence around the cemetery. So we're kind of waiting for some of that to get cleared out and us to be able to see all of the siding, the windows, and the interiors finished on the house. And then we'll go have a visit out there, either as one of our regular meeting times or we'll schedule a special meeting to go out. But we're pretty pleased, and actually it's probably about time for Sherry and I to, or at least one of us to make a trip out there and go check progress. But I think Ellingson Contracting was planning to be done by the end of the summer. The reconstruction of the chimney foundation was like causing a bit of problem when we went through our really wet spring. They're trying to figure that out. So they were anticipating a kind of mid to end of summer completion. So we're really looking forward to that as well. Maybe once we get out of summer temperatures, we'll have kind of a fall visit and go see everything. If that would be okay with y'all.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good trip.
And if you get excited about really enormous old trees, there's a couple of those out there that are pretty cool, so.
Really great old trees. So we're really pleased. We submitted the final report. Sherry just got a notice about the check. So project finished for our cemetery restoration. So that brings us to the Heritage and Historic Preservation Master Plan as an update. We are still working some details out with the consultant to be able to get a contract ready to bring forward to City Council. That could be in the next couple of weeks. It could take about a month. Once everything's complete, we still have to submit it through the review process to get placed on the council calendar, make sure all the paperwork's correct. And that's usually about a 3-week process. So that's why I say it could be another month before y'all see that before council. As soon as we have things ready to go, we'll send out an email to everybody, let y'all know. And usually these things are less exciting when they get to council because most contracts come in under consent agenda. Most of the discussion about it is probably going to be an agenda session the week before. We'll make sure to send information about all of that, as well as like how to watch or how to join on Zoom so that y'all have that opportunity. So we're almost there, and what we expect for our August meeting, which is kind of fun that Ian's maybe coming to our August meeting instead, is that we'll have a whole bunch of stuff to lay out for you about the plan, how that's going to work. We'll need to look at steering committee and who kind of wants to join in on steering committee meetings. Those are obviously kind of additional time commitments. We'll also talk about the public engagement plan, and these are all things that we would hope that y'all would be involved in as your schedule and availability allows. So that'll be great fun. We're trying to figure out a couple of final details and some contract language to get everybody on the same page, but we're almost there, guys. Finally, so that's really fun. We had an item last time that I wanted to follow up on. We talked about Mount Comfort, the historic community that Fayetteville has absorbed into its northwest borders. So I did a little bit of research and fact finding. I see Tawny's joined us. Hello, Miss Davis, how are you?
Somehow we can't hear her any, she's unmuted, but we can't hear her.
Well, she could hear me, so I wonder if it's the speakers.
Yeah.
That works.
Our house is completely so. Tell me again what that is.
It's the one you live in, Silver Street?
This is where.
Okay.
Speakers are the-
Okay, so that's back up the hill.
We tore up.
Yeah, they tore this school down. This was the other elementary.
So when was that taken?
It is.
What is it?
Lincoln Elementary.
Oh, wow.
I think it's.
I think it's 67.
He's got something.
And they tore it down not long after
something.
It's John first somewhere.
I think they built the
No,
park.
no, the one with the dumpster.
It was between 60.
Oh, yes, the park architects
I
did
think they built the.
Yeah, well,
shortly afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's the contractor.
God.
Hey, Tommy, are you able to hear us at least?
Yeah, I got this school here in 75.
Talking about that. So, Ellen Smith,
Yes.
she died.
Well, I wonder why we
Oh, I know that then. You know, I think I have a picture
Oh, really?
of this Henderson,
She used her little walker.
It was,
She could talk
a
about.
bunch of the kids, they were gathered, they were close together.
Yeah, the one where they're all barefoot, I mean, some of them actually, but
Yeah.
they're all standing lined up in front of the
I mean,
house.
they were like, yeah, it was, gosh, I would say probably,
And
well, it was more
she
kids
was
than this.
transferred.
Yes, that's the one that I had hoped,
Meant to her.
that's the one that I had remembered this one being. And so when she, I took a picture of it and sent it to me, like, oh yeah, I forgot she had that one too. I thought that she had painted one of that as well, but I could be wrong, that she just has a black and white picture of that in her house. And it's also at the Washington County Historical
And this
Society.
little plaque by,
Yeah, that's the one I had
We're-
looked for, and I thought, oh, yeah, I'm gonna do,
Yeah, cause I kept looking at this and I thought, man,
Yeah, that's-
her house.
yeah.
And
So that's not the same one.
Let me look
it's
at
right
it
across the
again.
street from me on Park.
The one that they're working
Oh, that's on Prospect or Park?
on.
Yeah, I don't think that's
The
it.
little one-story house.
Yeah, with the red
Yeah, that's not it.
shingles on the front.
yeah,
And
one
They had a
of
tree
the,
come down and that's.
It's on our, it's
And
on
that was-
the,
Tommy, I still can't hear you, but
was-
I can't figure out if the problem's on my end or on
there were some
yours.
people that I
And so
could
her
kinda,
grandson
Yeah.
and his wife.
that picture you're talking about is on
Yes, and
that
so
link,
it's
on the
staying
links
in
page,
the
where it says Fayetteville history. If you go to that page, it's on that page.
I remember we had an ice cream social.
Yeah, I love that
She
picture.
listed, and he was like, where's Ellen? And she said, I know, I said, no, it's actually in Estes Park. And she's like 103 years old. And so she was amazing. Never lost her faculties, never stopped.
I don't know, guys. I think this is beyond my tech knowledge. Not that I have a lot.
She was just the brightest person. I just it's more belief. Like her pelvis broke right in here with her bladder. And
Hello, Media Services, this is Virginia, how can I help you?
Hey Virginia, this is Britton from Planning Division. I'm up in City Hall Room 326 and we had a commissioner just join our Zoom meeting, but we can't hear her. And I can't tell if the problem is on my end or on her end.
my mom would like.
First off, have you asked her to make sure she's not muted?
And she,
Yes, we did that.
Okay,
thank you.
perfect
handwriting, very legible, not shaky. We have all these thank you letters.
and it's set to Shure anti-USB matrix, correct, your computer?
Let me double check. Yes. So speakers are the Shure NI USB dash matrix.
And then the microphone source for Zoom and other online meetings should be set to USB echo canceling microphone out. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that's correct.
And I said, I know. And I said, no, it's not.
And you've connected to your audio,
And
you
then
can
she
hear,
they're gonna tell you what color paint and all this.
That's not
All
true.
these, I know, and I was just like.
but yet she can't hear you.
And I was-
She can hear us, we can't hear her.
They wouldn't tell you anything. We know.
It might need to be, she needs to select different speakers or microphones, it might be on her end.
Okay, we'll try that and see if we can get that figured out.
Yeah, cause I think you have everything right on your end, if she can,
Really think
so she can hear you, you just can't hear her.
Correct.
I've learned to.
So I just wanted to make sure that I had my settings correct, cause I'm not the best at this.
Yeah, she might need to select a different microphone or a different speaker on her end, probably a different microphone on her end.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Medicine and any science, you really test, prove or disprove. You may or may challenge your theory, and you may have to have a new set.
Do you have her number?
Medicine.
Do you mind just texting her and say, if she has like a comment she needs to make, let us know, but if she can hear us, then I can maybe go ahead and do the presentation. I'm trying not to leave her out of the meeting though, because that's not very fair.
She left the
We
meeting.
have to be.
Yeah, she's logged out and then logged in a couple of times to try to see if that'll resolve the issue.
And so, but people are.
I hate for people to be left out, but man, there's always one glitch.
Yeah, you spoke too soon.
What,
Bragging on our IT.
don't let me ever say that again. Regret my life.
We've all done it.
I looked
Okay, well, I will get this presentation up. Sorry about the delay, y'all. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, you could do anything with your house or something.
There we go.
We had
Okay.
reached out to Mr. Stewart, who used to live there because he.
You want me to have her to text if she have any questions?
Yeah, if she does, in that way.
We can just answer it
Okay.
out here.
I just didn't want her to be able to communicate with us if she had a question or a concern or
And he
something
rolled up
that,
with
like,
the letter.
we need to be able to communicate, so. Okay, so we talked about this last week. Mount Comfort, it's over on the northwest part of town. There's a park coming in, Underwood Park, named after the jewelry store owning family that Faye Jones designed the jewelry store and then office there for a long time. There's a cemetery and there's Underwood Park, and here's an area where educational institutions in Fayetteville got started, or at least in northwest Arkansas. So if you drive by it, there's a little church, there's a little cemetery, but according to research, there was a whole lot that went on right about there in the 1840s in Fayetteville. So presented this at the last meeting. This is something that Jerry Hogan put together. Some research, we showed that there is this stone that still exists from 1934 that dedicated kind of to the memory of the Ozark Institute, Robert Mecklin. Well, we had, I think I mentioned to y'all, a gentleman named Ben Henbest who has family buried in Mount Comfort and kind of is a descendant of some of these key figures in the Mount Comfort area. He brought 5 names and places forward and was like, I really want to kind of consider, especially as we get Underwood Park developed, and that's about to go through its park master planning process, but as we get Underwood Park developed, I'd really like to see what we can do about recognizing these people and places in Mount Comfort's history. So I sent this out. This is a lot of information, but essentially, Far West Cemetery started in what was the original Mount Comfort Church, just constructed around, this is in the 1840s. Fayetteville got founded, kind of first run 1826 or 28. So this is like, there's not a lot of people here at this point. This is still a frontier town, kind of the western settlement perspective. And a meeting, this is really great. So that turns out the Washington County records hold some documents from the series of meetings that were held in order to establish a college preparatory for boys. And how they ended up getting recorded in the county records, I don't know, but somebody went and did the research and found it, and I'm kind of building off of that. So there was basically a community meeting in 1843 that appointed a group of 7 men to organize a plan, principles, location, and a name for an institution of learning in Washington County. Now, this is at the same time that, if you'll remember what Rebecca said, Sarah Northrop Ridge had fled the Cherokee Nation and come to Fayetteville with her family and with Sophia Sawyer, who got kind of a bit of land donated to her from David Walker of the Walker Stone House that's down the street, and she started the Fayetteville Female Seminary. Well, this was going to be a school for young men. She was teaching young ladies, he was going to teach young men, and this is college preparatory work. Not a college as we think of it today, still not exactly a high school as we think of it today, but the closest thing is probably a high school. But these could have been students who were like 8 and 9 years old. So it doesn't have the exact translation to schools that we have today. But anyway, so Isaac Murphy, Cephas, Washburn, James Boone, David Walker, Alfred Arrington, and B.H., I think that's Pearson, Samuel Newton. Anyway, this group of guys convened a meeting and they kind of laid out this plan to use a man named Solomon Tuttle's property in order to establish a school. So the Tuttles had basically settled the Mount Comfort area. They owned a lot of land there, hundreds of acres, and they were willing to donate some land to make this happen. So they went through basically what we're going to teach, and the plan was to teach ancient and modern languages, moral, physical, and intellectual sciences, agriculture, and the mechanic arts, using the Bible as kind of a moral and religious standard. But what's funny about that is they didn't want to affiliate with a particular religious organization. So it wasn't going to be a Presbyterian school, it wasn't going to be a Baptist school, it was not going to be a Methodist school, it was just going to be kind of in their thinking, it's like, well, it's kind of more neutral, but still based on the Bible. So they all these meeting minutes and kind of the report that they produced to suggest that this is how they should proceed are in the Washington County records. So It turns out there were a lot of people not in favor of higher education in this part of the country at that time. And so they had some opposition, is that they had these really well-educated men who had college backgrounds and college degrees, usually from the East, who were supporting higher education opportunities here. What's wild is that they're getting this all together and they're getting it incorporated and they're working on all of that, and they started construction on the school, and the school building burned before they even got started. And so in 1845 they have this fire, and they hadn't even quite got everything done, and everything just falls apart after that. They didn't have the financing they needed. The state banking kind of scandal happened where the state, it basically was illegal to have a public bank in Arkansas for a while because there had been such a scandal and criminal activity related to the state's banking. People just didn't trust a lot of stuff. A lot of people lost money. So everything's going wrong. They have a fire, they can't get financed, and everybody just kind of loses interest. Well, what's really funny is that this guy, Robert Mecklin, takes advantage of that. He'd been on the board. He kind of planned to be a teacher there. So he, on the side, opens his own school. And then he ends up, they couldn't pay the debts on the Far West Seminary. So he ends up going to the sheriff's sale on the county courthouse steps and buys all of the property that was owned by the school for $100, which is still a lot of money, but he kind of swoops in and grabs it, builds his school on top of the charred remains of the school building that had burned, builds his house there, and opens a very successful, well-regarded college preparatory school for young men. And so I don't know if he just wasn't getting along with folks to begin with. I don't know how that happened, but he just kind of whoop and got his school going. And so so they kind of went, oh, okay, that's fine. And it seems like the whole time he's kind of building his school and his reputation while everything else is falling apart, and just kind of gets in there and makes this happen. So they went from a $400 debt to him purchasing everything for $100 at this kind of sheriff's sale, this debt sale. And so that's how he got, so they no longer had property, they had lots of debt. So the Far West Seminary kind of fell apart after that and just ceased to exist. And he goes on with the Ozark Institute. So in 1844, a little tidbit, and the New York Tribune talked about it, which is sometimes researching newspapers is really fun. So it says, the Far West Seminary, this is the title of an institution which the Friends of Learning and Religion are endeavoring to establish 3 miles from Fayetteville, Arkansas. This town is in Washington County in the northwest corner of Arkansas, a district intersected by the Ozark Mountains where there are few slaves and where the people raise their own wool and cotton and manufacture it for themselves. The Cherokees are within 25 miles, and that would have been 25 miles to the west of us. And the Choctaws are within 45. It is a leading purpose of the seminary to instruct the Indians. This primarily would have been Cherokee Nation students. Arkansas as yet has no college, and we hope this effort will succeed. So this is in 1844 in New York City that they're capturing this story, which is just like, wow, we made the national news.
That's pretty fun.
It's kind of fun, right? And so what is kind of,
she can't hear us.
Yeah.
man, well, I don't know how to fix it. So, and Virginia said I had everything set correctly, so maybe it's a speaker issue. We'll send her the video.
Could we dial her in on a phone or something, or does that create problems recording?
I don't
Oh, she can't hear us at all?
No,
That's
she
what
can't hear
she's
us
saying
anymore.
now.
Oh, okay.
So I can call, oh, it has the phone number on here too. I don't know if she wants to call us or if she wants me to call her. But it has the phone number on here. So she should be able to call, I don't know if it causes a problem or not, but she should be able to call into the speakerphone, and we can do it that way.
You wanna call her?
Yeah. Do you know what her,
What's your number? She's got 2.
which number would she like me
Your call cannot be completed.
No, don't do that.
501-920-0693,
501
920
920.
0698.
Hello?
Hello, is this Tommy?
Yeah.
This is Brittany.
Hi, Tommy.
I heard y'all just fine until you asked if I could hear you. You all couldn't hear me, but I could hear you, and then it all went silent, so.
Well,
I heard you all talking about the historic districts and everything, but I don't know what happened, but I can't even hear you all now.
I don't know what happened either, but we're gonna keep you on speakerphone so that we can keep you in the
Okay.
meeting. Does that work? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, cause they told me, I called media services and they said I had everything correct on our end. So this just seems like a good workaround if you're okay with it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I was just talking through some of the presentation that I already sent. So I'm not really sharing anything new, just trying to be entertaining because I think this is great fun. I was just talking about how this institute for students made the New York Tribune in New York City in 1844. So news of this school like really kind of spread. And there's a marker, it says in Mount Comfort, but apparently somebody wrote an article several years ago that had some dates for the schools when things were established and built and all that, and they got the dates wrong, but that article got referenced a lot, so these false dates have been circulating around the internet for a long time. And so the dates on the historical marker are apparently a little bit wrong too because they use the mistaken information. But there was also some pictures. These are not historic photos, but they are pictures of the sites where the seminary was. The building's no longer there. None of it is there anymore. Robert Mecklin's house is not there anymore, all these things. The only thing left, and what's really important for us, is the spring house is still there, and it's in Underwood Park. So we still have one remaining structure from the 1840s that is extant, and that we might be able to do some interpretive signage and make sure that people know why we would have, you look at it, it's like, well, why do you have this? Well, it's the only thing that still stands from that period in time.
Is Underwood Park a neighborhood, or are you talking about a park?
It's a park.
Okay.
It's a city park, and they are going through the planning process to figure out what it's gonna be when construction gets complete and it gets funded and all that.
Okay, I think I've seen a video on that.
Yeah, you probably have.
Yeah.
So we probably have a little
Underwood,
bit of an
sure.
opportunity to help with capturing historic information in the park so that people know the context of where they're enjoying recreational opportunities.
When was it that the school ceased to exist?
So, like the 1870s, after Robert Mecklin died, so everything fell apart during the Civil War. Education just kind of went by the wayside. Robert Mecklin and his family stayed in Fayetteville, which is apparently very dangerous. And we know this because his diaries from like 1861 to 1863 are online. I found transcriptions of his diaries from that time, and they did not have a very enjoyable, like food was hard to find. It was very dangerous. They had kind of roving bands of people who were neither Union nor Confederate. They were just out to cause trouble. A lot of people were getting shot who had nothing to do with the war. And so he was kind of a lot of people bailed out for Texas and Missouri because they didn't want to be in Arkansas at that time. So the Ozark Institute is what Robert Mecklin started, and that's where he kind of snuck in and got his school going. And so this is funny because he charged for his school, so we really didn't have public schooling here. And so you had to kind of pay tuition, and then students who were living far enough away that they couldn't just walk to school or couldn't afford to have a horse, they would just board with like families around. So it was like part of your family's income to just like take these students in and feed them and house them, and they would go to school and you would, do whatever you did. So its annual tuition was $24 right before 1850. But he got up within a 2-year period, he went from 5 students to 60 students. A 4-year period. So he was really successful in doing this, which is kind of fun. So he taught Cherokee students, and if y'all remember Rebecca talking about this, one of the members of her family, one of the rich sons, went to this school, and then he became a very prominent novelist, and he's considered to be the first Native American to publish a novel. And so that was John Rowland Bridge. So he, even though his sisters in Sophia Sawyer were here in Fayetteville, he was actually going 3 miles north to go to school because he didn't go to the Fayetteville Female Seminary. He went to the Ozark Institute. Also, I found out that Edward Payson Washburn, the artist who painted the Arkansas Traveler, went to this school. So, who knew? Some really famous people were associated with this. So they, during the Civil War, they got kind of cleaned out. They used the school building as a hospital. It just really disrupted education. And then Mecklin kind of gave up teaching, and the school kind of limped along until his death. And then about that time was when the Arkansas Industrial University, which is the University of Arkansas, came to town. And that really kind of took over college level or even college preparatory education in the area. So some of the people who were associated this ended up being like really interesting history. So Cephas Washburn was a real proponent of this. He was a direct descendant of one of the Mayflower families, came from Vermont, and he was born in this is right after the Revolutionary War. So we're talking about a time in Fayetteville's history that people are alive who were, coming out of the American Revolution kind of area up in the Northeast. So he preached all over Arkansas. He really preached kind of all over this area. He's considered to have delivered one of the very first sermons in the state of Arkansas in Little Rock on the 4th of July in 1820. So he kind of went back and forth between teaching and preaching a little bit, and he didn't stay at Far West Seminary or the Ozark Institute very long. He was really kind of running around, and he ended up dying of pneumonia while he was in the middle of traveling to preach. So he's buried in Little Rock, which is where he died of pneumonia, but that's not where he was living at the time. So trying to find where people ended up buried was kind of an interesting search through cemetery records, but here he is. And so this is him being painted by his son, who ended up becoming a very famous artist. This is compared to his son's later work. This is definitely an earlier portrait when he was still developing his skills. This is around 1855. Robert Mecklin is kind of, the brains behind this operation, and he's the one that really got the reputation for the Ozark Institute, but he was from South Carolina and attended college in Georgia. So what's consistent about these men is they were all college educated at a time that was not a very common thing. And so something that was kind of interesting about this is he was elected to the state senate in 1860, and he ended up siding with the Confederate States. He ended up being a secessionist. But of kind of the group of men that he was around, everybody was not a secessionist. So there was kind of division even in this very close-knit group of educators over who wanted to side with the Confederates and who wanted to side with the Unionists. So I've heard it said, even the short time I've been in Fayetteville, that the Civil War was very divisive, even within families here. And this kind of seems to play that out. So he died in 1871 in Mount Comfort, his home, and then his letters, 1863 to 1864. Those were published by the Washington County Historical Society, and so I've got a link to the online page where you can find those in the presentation I sent out. It's pretty bleak sometimes. He's kind of writing letters to his sister and basically talking about how hard they have it, which was accurate. So here's a picture of him. He has a really great beard. I don't know where some of these photos and lithographs come from, but this is allegedly Mr. Mecklin. And so then we get to Governor Isaac Murphy, and this one is really, to me, this is kind of one of the most interesting characters. He was born in Pennsylvania in 1799, so he just snuck into the 18th century. Also a college graduate. He was a lawyer and then kind of immediately went to teach school. So he was a pretty staunch abolitionist, and his wife's family was not impressed by any of that. So he had a really contentious relationship with his in-laws, and they ended up moving to Fayetteville, where he basically did anything that would make him some money within his skill set. He ended up being a really pretty significant politician, however. So he was one of a very, very small group of people who opposed secession when the Civil War came to Arkansas. and he had a lot of pressure to change his vote so that it would be a unanimous vote to secede from the Union, and he refused, which at the time just really, he basically was kicked to the curb by his friends for his orientation on that. But when, at the end of the Civil War during Reconstruction, he basically got appointed and then elected to governor of Arkansas under Reconstruction because he had sided with the Unionists who are now in control. So his kind of political downfall became his political success, which was kind of an interesting thing. He ended up going to the California gold fields at one point to try to kind of salvage his family's finances after the state banking system collapsed. And so he's really had a very interesting life, and apparently he was really into astronomy, and I do not know how this works, but he made his own telescope using a horse collar, according to the records on him. I couldn't even tell you how that would have worked.
Sounds like he should have been an engineer.
I think he was a kind of a Renaissance man, a man of many skills. And so he ended up moving to Huntsville, where he farmed and practiced law. He occasionally served as a judge, and then he lived until 1882. So he had a pretty long life there. But he's the 8th governor of Arkansas, and what a way to become governor. So that was also
Did
fun.
it say he opposed the Fayetteville Seminary charter, or was that his Democrat Party that opposed
The Democrat Party did. So he was a Democrat, but he was always not quite fitting with the group.
Right.
So the Democratic Party was really opposed to higher education, and they're like, we don't need to spend money on this. This is a waste of time. So he was part of the party, but he was one of the strongest advocates for it. So he just never would quite fit in with the group's orientation toward things. So when they were trying to establish these schools, basically for the Ozark Institute, they were trying to get it basically they needed the state legislature to pass legislation to give them their charter. And the Democrats of Northwest Arkansas were opposing a charter for a school in their own area. And it caused apparently there were some nasty comments back and forth in the newspaper and some other kind of things that we may be familiar with today over that. So I thought that was kind of pretty fun, and I wanted to share with y'all. So this is kind of what we know, at least what I am aware of at the moment with Mount Comfort and the people and places that we can associate with that. So as we move forward and as we kind of understand better what the park is going to look like, we may look for opportunities to capture some of that through signage or other means. But if y'all find something that you want researched, want to know more about, we are happy to tackle it. This is a really fun part of the job. So hopefully it's a fun part of y'all's meetings as well, and we're happy to share that. But that is really all we have for this evening. So any other comments, questions? Please don't forget your books and let us know if you need anything. We're really looking forward to our August meeting. We think that'll be fun. And if nothing else, we can be adjourned.